Good evening, Warriors, and welcome in to another edition of the R&R Sports Report. I'm your host, Randy Isbell. With me, as always, Mr. Robert Hagan. Robert, what's going on, man?
Man, it's been a busy day at school trying to get back into the work routine, but more importantly, getting back into getting things ready for football at the junior high level is ordering more gear, trying to get everything ready to go, and put together 20 brand new football helmets yesterday. So it has been a crazy few days getting geared up for our season starting on Monday.
That's crazy to think school's right around the
Mm-hmm.
corner. I know I start school on Monday. We're getting things ready. My daughter starts kindergarten a week from tomorrow, which is just crazy to me. My son's last year of junior high is this year. I'm getting old, is what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I'm
Uh,
getting old.
Alila starts first grade, like you said, a week from tomorrow, and then I can't believe it. Bane's got one more year, and he starts kindergarten next year. So it'll be crazy.
How you feeling after our golf and bowling tournament
Oh,
extravaganza?
dude, I was so tired Saturday. I was very slow moving around the house. For us to bowl 10 games of Baker after playing 18 in what it was not so hot weather. We were blessed with that. But I'm still a little peeved, and I don't know, I sent it to all of our guys that we played. I felt we played a great round of golf for what we did
For us, for
for
sure.
in the past, only shooting 2 over. So I
Mhm.
mean, we were really pretty decent with our score, 2 birdies, we had 4 bogeys, but we were last.
Yep.
How do you look at the field of who we played against and that and look at some of those guys and say, how did all other 12 teams beat us in golf?
Again, Ryan Needham called it the most honest award, and that's what
Yeah.
we get every year. We're always the last in golf, and usually because we're really bad. We did okay, but you can't have the bogeys that we did, and it kind of took us out of contention. And we didn't bowl that great compared to what we usually do, but that's kind of what Baker will do to you.
Yeah.
And I don't know, nobody really shot that great in Baker, really. So I think we were top three as far as bowling went, but
I think so too. We just couldn't get any lucky any releases up onto the green, especially we were on 7, coming down on 7, and then the fried egg shot on 9, right short
that
of
was fun.
the green, and it just buried itself an inch down. You could see the divot was an inch down and popped up, and that was it. There was no release onto the green, and so we didn't get the breaks that we were looking for, but
Eh,
a
oh
little
well.
sore.
We had fun with it. It'll be interesting. It's to be the 20th year that they'll be doing it next year. So see
Hmm.
what Ryan comes up with. We've done what well over half of them.
Uh huh.
You and I.
Well over.
I was trying to figure out. Haley and I were talking about the other day of how many we've done and the different iterations of our team. And I think I've only missed it one season since you and I started playing as a team. I think I was out of town or something that weekend. But
And
other than
the,
that, it's been you and me and two other guys for well over 10 years. I think.
Yeah, except for my short little stint in 2018 when I was in
Yeah.
the hospital, and the doctor wouldn't release me. I was so mad. I had been out of the hospital about a month, and they wouldn't release me to swing a golf club or pick up a bowling ball yet. So a little frustrating on that. But I'm bummed as I looked. I went to Twitter first thing Sunday morning, and Joel Damon or Gino Bonelli was in town
Right.
Saturday afternoon. I'm like, dude, you knew you missed the cut. You should have flown home faster. You know.
Well, he was ready to hang out with his kid, and I
Yeah.
don't blame him.
Happy
And
birthday to Gino's child. They celebrate birthday on Sunday.
but I
So,
mean that's here nor there. Maybe next year the things will line up a bit better, and maybe we can finally get somebody that's good at golf instead of the four of us. When you're relying on a lot of my shots, it's a rough group. But let's get
well,
right into it. We got a lot to get into today. Of course, we're going to talk a lot about baseball as we're getting closer and closer to the postseason. A lot of teams are getting themselves in the right direction for the postseason. Another team is just hanging out in the month of August, I guess is the best way you can put it. We will get to all of that and more, we talked about it last week. We will be breaking down the AFC and NFC West divisions this week. So all you Raider fans, all you Seahawk fans, and if the Chief fan is listening, we will be talking about your divisions, AFC this hour, NFC next hour. We'll give you some of our thoughts for every team. We'll hit one big question, and then we will give you our ranking, what we think the final standings will look like. We got a lot of local sports to get to, as Idaho football practices are already underway. Washington football practices start tomorrow. And we actually had our first local sporting event as golf got underway yesterday. So we'll talk about that. And LC has their seasons getting ready to kick off as volleyball will be underway later this week as they're will be down in California. So we'll kind of give you a mini preview of that team and get you ready for that season. We have a sports related draft as always. Robert is the person that got to pick it. Robert, go ahead and announce it.
Yeah, well, this week, after my terrible listening skills on Sunday night's ESPN, I went with who is the best sports anchor of all times. As listening to the guy that kind of was very terrible. I miss the old school guys, and so time to bring that back. We take a look at some of those guys.
Spoilers, it's very 1990s ESPN centric. That's
very much
list.
So.
If they were a big part of the 90s on ESPN, a good chance they are going to make our draft. Of course, it's the final regular season week of Aussie Rules football, so we will get into all of that at the end, as well as golf and NASCAR and all the other fun stuff. But we got a couple things that we had missed, according to Robert Hagan, and just things that kind of slipped by us. So, Robert, what did we miss last week?
Last week, I did post on our page, and I want to shout out to, we always want to talk about our local athletes and past graduates, and that's what Carson Badham grad and Idaho Vandal. Trayvon Allen signs again to play in Europe. He's going to be playing for Cremona in Europe for the 2022-2023 season. So hats off to him. Allen averaged just over 27 minutes, 13.5 points per game, 76% from the free throw line. So in just 39 games with Canton. So he'll be on a different team this year, but again, signing another contract to play over in Europe. So hats off to him. Also, we got to bring up the Coug. I know it's just preseason, but Max Borghi does sign with Denver and does play. Does get touched the ball 4 times there in preseason game, but heading back home, signs the contract close to home there in Denver.
Yeah, we will talk a little bit about preseason. Anybody that knows me knows my hatred for the preseason. Anybody that has seen what happened to the New York Jets this past week understands that hatred has risen. We will get into that a little bit. Anybody here excited to hear us break down the preseason top 25 garbage in college football? You've come to the wrong place. I do not care. Ranking teams before they've even taken the field is stupid, and I've always hated it. You should not be giving us any sort of ranking until at least week 6. So we are not going to break down. I don't care that Alabama's won. Does not matter to me. Does it matter to you?
No, and I don't even see them being the number 1 team right now. So
again, who knows?
Who knows exactly until you get out on the field and play the ball, and that it's a mute point. So
it's just a talking point, and we're not here for those talking points. We're here for Major League Baseball right now. Let's go through the scoreboard real quick. Right now, bottom of the 7th inning, the Rays, who hit a big 3-run homer with Randy Rosarina, no relation. They lead the Yankees 3-1. Yankees are trying to threaten in the bottom of the 7th, but I have no faith in it. And actually, they might have just hit into a double play. No, they get one out. Okay, cool. Bottom of the 7th inning as well. Phillies over the Reds 6-3. Padres and Marlins are tied at 3 in the bottom of the 7th. Cubs over the Nationals 4-1 in a game that nobody cares about. Red Sox up 5-0 over the Pirates. Just a one-hitter right now in that one. They're in the bottom of the 8th. Orioles have come storming back. They scored 2 in the 5th, 2 in the 6th. They lead Toronto 4-2 right now, going to the bottom of the 6th inning. Tigers over the Guardians 4-1. There it is. I knew he was here. This way, I just had to say Baltimore, and we know when Denny's around. Tigers over the Guardians 4-1, top of the sixth inning. Braves, who destroyed the Mets yesterday, leading 3-0 right now in the bottom of the sixth, trying to make that race a lot closer than it was looking before. Twins over the Royals 3-0 in the fifth. Cardinals over the Rockies 1-0 in the fifth. The A's have scored one run in each of the first three innings. They lead the Rangers 3-0 in another game that nobody cares about. Astros over the White Sox 2-1 in the third. Brewers over the Dodgers 2-0 in the fourth. And just about to get going in about 20, 30 minutes, you have the Mariners and Angels and Diamondbacks and Giants. Any crazy scores out there that jump out to you?
No, not really. Other than excited to see what the Mariners can do. They've got a hard couple of weeks to get up that wild card, I think, and for them to be able to handle things yesterday, even with the crazy put out the scoring play in the ninth to end up winning and getting the lead against Angels yesterday. So it's going to be an interesting weekend for the Mariners for sure.
Yeah, we will get into the standings and stuff shortly. Field of Dreams was last week.
Still one of the coolest things.
It's not. They've killed it already.
Well,
absolutely killed it already. And you know why? Because they put two garbage teams out on the field. The game was pointless. It was horrible. And they tried to retread the coolness of the players walking through the cornfield and stuff. Listening to Joey Votto on the field was cool. And yes, even seeing Ken Griffey Jr. and Sr. play catch, even though Sr. dropped the first ball, was a decent moment, but they kind of rolled it too long. That Field of Dreams theme went on for 37 minutes. Roman Reigns gets to the ring faster than Ken Griffey Jr. and Sr. were able to get to the spot that it needed to play catch. It took far too long. And it's still a cool spectacle to play baseball, but you still have to put a competitive game out there. Like the Yankees and White Sox game was such a cool moment because it's the very, very first time you're doing it. Kevin Costner's out there really redoing one of the scenes with the Yankees and White Sox coming out. He's nowhere to be seen now. And the game was incredible. The walk-off by Tim Anderson was insane for that game and just kind of added to that moment. You got none of that with the Cubs and the Reds.
Yeah, no home runs hit, but you can't project who and where those teams are.
You could have projected those two teams.
You can't project the.
You could have projected those two teams
when those two teams were selected in the year prior. So I mean, that's here and there. Whether or not it was a good game. It was a decent game. A fair amount, and I think you hit it there a minute ago. The Joey Votto conversation and what he was talking about during the middle innings was great. So, and to see Johnny Bench there and a lot of those older players, Andre Dawson, a lot of those, and the unis were cool. The Cincinnati uniforms I thought were really, really cool. So I enjoyed it. I sat in front of the TV the entire time and didn't even leave the action, even though they are two of the bottom teams this year.
Just like putting the Texans and the Lions in some special NFL event. You know it's going to be a bad game.
Well, I mean, you can't do that a year out. I mean,
yes, you can. Any years. You got to put two good teams out there. I don't know if they've announced next year's teams, but I'm sure if they have, we could tell you whether it's going to be a good game or not.
Actually, from what I've been reading, I do not believe they are playing next year because they're. From what I saw, the group with Frank Thomas, and reading into it a little bit, Frank Thomas has bought the entire area and they're looking to expand it and put a bunch of different baseball fields in that area.
So they're just going to oversaturate it.
Okay. Yeah, that's the way I have read it over the last little bit. I'm bummed with that. I would have kept it right how it is now. Even though the average ticket was like $900, which was crazy to think about. So the last I read in everything was there's no game scheduled right now or slated for next year.
Gotcha. Let's talk about the big news that happened over the past week. Fernando Tatis Jr., who is working his way back from injury, can just stop working for a while. He is out for the rest of this year and for probably the first 40 games or so.
Yeah.
next year. It kind of all depends on how far San Diego goes in the postseason, because all of those games count towards his 80 games. So the longer they go, the faster he can come back next year. I'm not going to try to pronounce the drug that he took, but he says it is, what was it, foot fungus or something. I'm blanking on what it was now.
I didn't. It's a weird name of what it was. I don't. It was some foot bacterial thing.
Oh, ringworm.
And
Ringworm. He said he was taking something to try to cure ringworm, and it had that stuff in it. Yep, then he has it as well. I am at that point, and you and I probably might be on the same page because we grew up through the steroid era. I don't believe a thing a player says anymore about, oh, I took it because of this. And now there's already reports of like the doctor saying that's not the medicine I gave you for that. So no, it wasn't me. And at any point, even if it was that situation, Tatis Jr. knows better than to go outside of the team for any of that stuff. Honestly, I believe that he was trying to rush himself back and took something he shouldn't and got caught. Those people that are out there saying, "Oh, see, Tatis Jr. is just always dirty and everything he's ever done is just it's off the books." I don't believe that. I truly believe he had never taken anything until this year, and he was trying to work himself back so he could join this awesome team with Soto and Machado, and made a stupid decision and got caught, and he's going to pay his penalty. And I do like the words that Alex Rodriguez said on Sunday, like whether you like him or not, and whether you believe he's genuine, it's he was hoping that the next generation would learn from his mistakes, and he understands the cost that he made himself for taking that kind of stuff, and now for Tatis Jr., no matter what he does for the rest of his career, Hall of Fame most likely is out unless the next generation of baseball writers don't care as much for steroids. It completely derails this cool Padres story that we were getting with that big Soto trade. And just what are your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you. You know my feeling about Barry. We've talked about it many times. Barry Bonds, Schilling, Roger Clemens, all of those guys during that.
Schilling never took anything. He was just a bozo.
Yeah. Well, during that time, and that's the biggest part for me is I as much as I loved the home run chase between Sosa and McGuire, it's got that tainted factor, and I wonder how much of this tainting it's going to cause Tatis's career. And you exactly right. You can pretty much probably kiss the Hall of Fame goodbye with this another tested positive thing. And you throw out the name that probably the one that has been under the microscope the most over the last few years is Robbie Cano. You look at what he's done, and one of probably the better players to play for your organization with the Yankees, probably one of the better ones for the Mariners. It was kind of cool to see him try to make a little bit of a push there with the Braves here a few weeks ago, but his career is tainted. His career is probably done, and
it's not done.
Well, he's going to probably stay in the AAA. That's probably where he'll finish up and be
excuse you.
Yeah, I think he does not make it back up.
I will take that bet.
I'm talking about Cano. I'm talking about
Cano. No, Cano's done. Sorry, I thought you were talking about Tatis.
Oh, no, Cano.
No, Tatis is going to be just fine. He'll come back, start hitting home runs and making great plays, and San Diego's going to completely forget about this.
Yeah, and you said it right. The things that could have happened with those three guys in the lineup. What does it do for that lineup? And especially when San Diego went all in to make this move. And so,
And we need to move on to these other topics, but I'm just going to end it. I want to get your take on it too. But did you see the comments from his dad?
No, I did not.
Biggest moron in all of sports. I'm sorry. For him to come out there and say that that Major League Baseball messed up for suspending his kid because now his son is going to have to deal with all of this repercussion because it's their fault, not his son's fault. Or the fact that because they suspended him for 80 games and ruined his reputation, that Major League Baseball is going to lose millions of fans. I get it.
Yeah.
You're a dad and you want to protect your kid.
Right.
Get off of social media, get off away from interviewers, and shut up.
Yeah, 100%. And then it sounds like the same idea as our buddy Mr. Ball. I mean, with that whole Ball family, it's the same issues and that.
Yes.
So yeah,
it's Major League Baseball's fault that Tatis decided to take something he wasn't supposed to.
yeah.
Rangers fired their manager Chris Woodward. They were really struggling. I get this firing, even though it's mid-year. We've seen a lot. There's 4 now, right? 4 mid-year firings now. But this one I get because Texas, I really thought that they felt that they were going to take a step forward and at least be in the wild card hunt. They're 9-10 games out right now, but like the ownership has made some big money moves to try to build this team. And I just don't think that they have taken the steps that they were hoping for. So we will see what they do in the offseason. Tony Beasley, right now, their third base coach, will be the interim manager, but I don't expect him to be the manager next year.
I don't see him even anywhere close in that. The only thing I'm wondering, they come off of 2 wins out of their last 4 there before the firing, but I don't know if he gets a fair shake. I mean, yes, I know they made a lot of moves to get there, but 51-63 to be the first time you're there this season. I think they probably should have waited. Maybe,
Well, I mean, we'll never know what's going on behind the scenes and the discussions that are getting made with the GM and the coach and the players. So obviously, it's probably not just based off of record for the firing. It does a lot to it, but we'll see what happens behind the scenes if anybody starts talking about that kind of stuff. I like the little video. John Boy just did a thing, I think, on their Not a Breakdown show. But the Pirates rookie Rodolfo Castro is suspended for 1 game and a fine because he went out on the field with a cell phone still in his pocket as he slides in the third and it kind of falls out. My favorite part of that entire video is the reaction from the third base coach when he tries to hand it to him. I was like, what are you doing? It's like, I get it. And even the head coach said it was a mistake. It's just a kid doing a dumb thing. But it was pretty funny.
2 things. 23-year-old, and he just got called up that day to play. That's the worst part about this whole thing by Castro. And I'm sorry, dude, if you're sitting in the dugout and you feel that thing in the back pocket.
He had his pad, his sliding pad,
right,
that the players will put on, when they're on base. He had that in his back pocket too, so he doesn't feel the cell phone.
Yeah,
until he takes that out to put it on, and then obviously didn't notice it.
Yeah, I'm just shocked at how he went out on the field, even without checking your locker the last time before you go out after taking infield and
I'm sure it was
back and change your clothes.
I'm sure it wasn't in his back pocket the whole game.
No, I doubt it.
I'm sure it was. He runs down to go check something, and then just we all do it. It's like the phone goes in the back pocket, and he just instinctively. It's not a big deal. Yeah. I mean, it's slightly a big deal with all the cheating scandals going on, because obviously, if you put a phone in your back pocket, just have somebody text you if it's a fastball, and it'll buzz, and then there you go. But it's not a big deal to me. The big deal is Walker Buehler having season-ending elbow surgery. Now, hopefully he'll be back by the beginning of next year. I still think the Dodgers are the favorites right now in the National League, if not all of Major League Baseball, but that's a big blow for them.
A huge blow, knowing that they're going to have to rely on a few other guys to step up and even probably bringing a couple up off the farm system. And so you look at, they're definitely going to keep the bats going. I mean, that's a no-brainer with the way the Freeman and Muncy and Trainer has played all season long. But for me with this is, what's the playoff scenario going to look like, and in the rotations there once the playoffs start. So I'm looking farther. We've still got 6 weeks left of the season, so it'll be interesting what happens in the month of October.
All right, let's kind of go over what happened over this weekend and reset the playoff standings. As Boston did defeat the Yankees 2 out of 3. Rays got the Orioles 2 out of 3. Toronto, who was right up there at the top of the wild card, they lose 2 of 3 to the Guardians, who have been coming on strong as of late. The Twins also in that AL Central race, they lose 2 out of 3 to the Angels. White Sox took care of business with the Tigers sweeping them. Houston did what they normally do. They swept the A's and got some revenge from a couple weeks ago. And Seattle, as you said, lost 2 out of 3 to Texas. So right now, your standings in the American League, Yankees still with a 10-game lead right now over the Rays and the Blue Jays, but again, currently losing 3-1 to Tampa Bay right now. Astros with a 12-game lead in the AL West. I think both of those divisions are locked. You can move on. The Central gets more and more interesting as the White Sox trying to work their way back. Tough series with the Astros going on right now. Chicago was able to win yesterday. But both Chicago and Minnesota, both 2 games back behind the Guardians. We're sitting at 62 and 54. Your wild card is just insane. Not only, I mean, it's always one of those interesting years when you add that extra wild card. That the whole point is it's going to add in other teams that wouldn't have had a chance. But even if there was only 2 wild cards like last year, all of these teams would be in it because they're all at the same record almost. So the Mariners right now are your top wild card, which is super important. We've said it multiple times. Only the top wild card team gets to play at home in that first round of the playoffs. They right now have a 1.5 lead over the Rays and the Blue Jays that are tied for second and third. Danny Grubb's Orioles right now a 1.5 back. Twins and White Sox 2 games back, and the Red Sox still hanging in there right now at 5 games back. Is it going to stay this tight for the next 6 weeks?
I think it is the way that these ball clubs are playing, and as much as we hate to say it, as I thought earlier in the year, I really didn't think the AL Central was going to be this close. You and I both talked about the idea of Chicago being the front runner, and now look at Cleveland and what they're doing. And hats off to Denny Grubb's Baltimore Orioles, man. Those guys are just playing like it. For me, watching these highlights, it looks like a bunch of young kids out there just having fun, wanting to play ball.
And just one of those crazy things that Baltimore goes, we're not going to ruin our overall game plan and still trade away Mancini and just continue to win. So it's the best of both worlds, for sure. The fan bases in both Baltimore and Seattle have been really fun to watch. As both of those teams have struggled a lot over the years, and seeing a winning ball club has been fantastic for those 2 organizations. And how close everything is, at least in the wild cards. For the most part, the divisions are toast, but the wild cards keep things pretty interesting. National League, the Mets took 2 out of 3 from Philadelphia. They only lost in an extra inning game on Friday. St. Louis took 2 out of 3 in a big series with Milwaukee. Again, their only loss came in extra innings. That went on Saturday. Atlanta just crushes Miami as they take a 4-game set. They've only given up 2 or fewer runs in the last 4 games. They've won 7 straight. They're leading the Mets right now. Dodgers had a 12-game winning streak snapped on Sunday, but take 2 out of 3 from Kansas City. No surprise there. San Diego takes 2 out of 3 from Washington. And the Giants do sweep the Pirates to keep themselves kind of in the mix. So you look at there, again, the NL West is done. The Dodgers now with a 17-game lead over the Padres, who would make the playoffs right now. That's just how good the Dodgers have been. I mean, obviously early on in the year, we were talking about the Yankees breaking the all-time win record. Dodgers, I think, are just a little bit under the pace, but the way they've been playing, absolutely fantastic. Braves have made the NL East pretty interesting again. They're 4.5 back behind the Mets and winning currently. And the Cardinals with a 2-game lead over the Brewers after winning that series this weekend. So that one's going to be right down to it. Only 5 teams really battling it out for the 3 spots, though. Braves, Phillies, and Padres right now in. You can lock the Braves in as at least a playoff spot.
100% with the playoff spot, but for me, it's going to boil down to what happens with the Mets over the next couple of weeks. So they get Scherzer. They've got Scherzer. Got DeGrom back, but now losing Carrasco, for 3 to 6 weeks or 3 to
Yeah.
4 weeks with a oblique, it could make a little bit of a difference. So,
Yeah.
and especially how hot Atlanta has played, it might turn around to what we had last year with a tighter race in the NL East than what we were expecting.
Right now, Brewers 2 games out of the wild card. Giants 5.5 back. Again, still hanging out. Let's move on to our power rankings, and our top 4 don't stay the same anymore. You made a big move.
I did. I moved a team up a little bit this week, and I moved your I hate to say it, I moved your Yankees.
You don't hate to stop saying you hate to say it. You
I
probably did it with the biggest smile on your face you've ever had in your life.
I moved the Yankees down from 3 down to 5. I mean, hitting a skid. What was it? 8 of 15 since 8 of 16 now since the All-Star break. Just kind
Feels worse
of
than that.
it feels. Yeah, I was gonna say you said it right, but the only bright spot has really been in the news story has been Aaron Judge, who is hands down. I don't see anybody else in the American League that will anywhere get close to him for AL MVP. But
it's him and Ohtani.
Yeah,
Ohtani is always going to be in the conversation as long as he has a decent season because he does it from both sides of the ball.
Right. But for me, I'm going to move the Yankees down to 5. So I'm keeping the Dodgers 1, with the big 12-game win streak and then getting that snap this weekend. But I kept the Mets up there, number 2. I moved Houston down 1 spot to 3, and Atlanta at 4 is my top 5.
For me, I'm with you. Dodgers 1. I moved the Mets ahead of the Astros, and they go to 2. Astros to 3. So that's very interchangeable to me right now. I just like the Mets as a whole more than I like Houston. I'm going to keep the Yankees at 4. I get it. They're completely slumping. They're really hard to watch as a Yankees fan. But I am just going off of John Boy and on their podcast where he's basically went, listen, the Yankees don't care about August, so I don't care about August.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You could just tell by the roster moves that the Yankees have made over the last few weeks, they don't care. Right? They made Rizzo sit out a few more days than he probably needed to. Stanton could probably be playing right now, but they're just taking it easy on him. They're making roster moves based on options instead of talent right now. Is there some good relief arms in the minors that could be used? There's a Peraza at shortstop that could be far better than IKF, though he got his first home run of the year, so that's great. But I don't. They are on this crazy skid that you just talked about. They're still up by 10 games because Toronto has struggled just as much. So until that cuts down to about 5, I don't think the Yankees care. They should have cared for home field advantage, but I think they want to come in healthy over anything else.
And like I said, and like you said, we've talked about them being for the top spots in the playoffs, but as Tampa Bay, 6-4 over the last 10, I still see them maybe skidding because of the boys from Baltimore. I think they're just playing for fun, and that's the thing. I think they sneak in and get in front of the Rays, and the O's make it to the playoffs too.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I have the Braves like you in our top 5. I'll have them at 5 right now. St. Louis is really close 6. They've been playing really well. But yeah, I can't argue with you putting the Braves over the Yankees, even though I do not. My bottom 3 stay the exact same: Tigers, Athletics, Nationals. It's just those 3 teams. They suck.
It's those 3 teams. I think I have Oakland ahead of Detroit, but when Detroit bats only 208 as a team, there's something wrong in Detroit. I think maybe it's time for change of scenery with some management there.
Yeah. My player of the week, Mr. Alex Bregman, third baseman from the Houston Astros, 9 for 19 on the week, 8 runs, 8 RBIs, had 3 home runs. And the other great stat there, 6 walks, 0 strikeouts on the week.
Yeah, for me, my player of the week, I'm going to go back to the guys there in San Diego and give me Manny Machado, the third baseman there, 11 to 24, 7 runs, 10 RBIs, 2 home runs. The K number was up a little bit with 4 strikeouts, but he has been the bat right now with protection from Soto. So His numbers climbed up a little bit this week.
What's your series to watch?
For me, hey, you touched on it a few minutes ago. The hot team right now in the major leagues, and I have to say it comes out of the American League Central. And so I hate to say it. Let's watch Chicago. Let's watch Cleveland. It's going to be a weekend series there as Cleveland is ahead of Chicago right now. But I think it's going to be an interesting week.
That'll be a fun series. Give me a fun interleague matchup. Houston Astros traveling to Atlanta to take on the Braves. Possible World Series preview. Would you be surprised if it's the Astros and Braves come November?
No, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Not at all. I think that could be a huge possibility, but depends on what the boys in blue can do, especially with Buehler going out. I think it's going to boil down to that.
All right, there you go. That's our baseball talk. We'll keep you updated with the scores unless the Yankees continue to suck. Then I'm not going to talk about any of that. Let's start with part one of Who Am I? I got some help last week. I might need it again this week. Let's see what you got for me.
Well, I'm having issues loading into it. So if you can do a score update really quick, it kicked me out. It kicked me out of it, so I'm not sure why it did it.
All right, quick score update. Yankees still losing 3-1, bottom of the 8th inning right now. Phillies have opened it up against the Reds. They lead 8-3 in the 9th. Marlins have retaken the lead. They're up 4-3 over the Padres, who scored 3 runs in the top of the 7th. They're in the 8th inning. Marlins up 4-3. Cubs over the Nationals 4-3 in the 8th. Pittsburgh put up 3 runs in the 8th, but still trail Boston 5-3 in the 9th inning. It's still 4-2 Orioles over the Blue Jays going to the 8th inning. Tigers over the Guardians 4-1, bottom of the 7th. Braves over the Mets 3-0 in the bottom of the 7th. Twins over the Royals 3-0 in the 7th inning as well. Cardinals jumped out 3-0, but the Rockies got 2 back in the top of the 6th. It's Cardinals 3, Rockies 2 in the bottom of the 6th inning right now. A's still with that 3-0 lead over the Rangers. They're in the 5th. Astros still with a 2-1 lead over the White Sox in the 4th. Dodgers have come back and tied the game with the Brewers up at 2 in the 5th inning and still about ready to start Mariners and Angels and Diamondbacks and Giants. And, of course, I say Baltimore and we get the O's.
Exactly. 100%. All right, here we go. I think you're going to have fun with this one, and I think you will get this one because of one of my hints a little later down the road. But here we go. I came to the United States at 21 to throw discus and participate in track and field with my childhood friend at Azusa Pacific. I won 7.
I know discus people. Cool.
I won 7 college titles in the shot put, the discus, and the hammer throw. After my home country declined an entry to the Olympics, I found a new sport to play. That was football. That's all you get right now.
Okay. Great. Fantastic. How about, I don't know if you read the community sports section in the Tribune today, but we ran a story about the Idaho Senior Olympics that are going on or went on this past weekend. Dude is throwing shot put in his 80s. It's like between 8, he holds the record, but for guys that are between 80 and 85.
No, I have not.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you should see some of the guys that participate in these athletic events at these ages. It's crazy to see the participants. Well, especially, I mean, you see some of them have participated at the lanes doing the bowling stuff, and seeing the age groups of some of those bowlers. It's nuts to see.
Very, very cool. By the way, trigger warning for anybody in a couple minutes, or sound volume level warning. Torres just got a hit with 2 outs, and Aaron Judge is coming up to the plate as the possible tying run. They're changing pitchers, but I'm just warning you now that the volume might get a little loud, hopefully, here shortly. All right, let's get into it. Let's get into the AFC West. I've not seen Robert Taylor here yet. Maybe he's just waiting in the wings for us to say the old Kansas City Chiefs.
He's probably slumming around somewhere.
We will see, but we look at how it went last year. Obviously, Kansas City won the division again. They've now won 6 straight AFC West titles. That's the most in AFC West history. Oh, Addie, I might need Addie to come sing that song. We might need that. broke a record that was tied between the Raiders and Broncos, who had won the previous 5, which again is the most in AFC West history. The Raiders were the only team with a negative point differential last year, but they did make the playoffs. It's the first wild card an AFC West team has gotten since 2018. The offseason moves are too long to list. We'll get there when we get to the teams, but everyone is doing everything they can to try to catch up with Kansas City. Obviously, we talked about the Broncos and Chiefs having recent success. Chargers looking for their first AFC title since 2009. Raiders have not won the AFC West since 2002. Just your overall thoughts on this division coming into the year.
I think it's got to be one of the stronger ones, and it's going to come down to, I think, the health of some of these athletes, what they can do, and with Justin Herbert, you look at some of these guys that are in there, especially the Chargers, and what kind of offensive firepower. I think they have a strong chance of, making a push for Kansas City this year. And I just love the way that these ball clubs have stacked, started to stack their lineups a little bit.
We'll get to the teams here in a moment, but is there even one team in this division that come January you would be shocked if you heard they won the division?
For me, and I know a lot of people argue with me about it. We've got friends that are on this, and that's the Las Vegas Raiders. I mean, they have made some moves. Yes, they have gotten one of the biggest acquisitions of Devontae Adams, but is it enough to have him there with that crew, Josh Jacobs? Is it enough to get past the firepower of the Chargers? Is it enough to get past the firepower?
Well, they didn't even have Adams, and they got through the firepower of the Chargers.
Yeah,
they finished second in that division last year without Adams, and let least us forget the John Gruden scandals. They dealt with that last year, and were pretty good. But let's get into it. Let's start again, alphabetical order through these teams. Kind of give you what they did during the offseason, and we'll kind of break things down. Denver Broncos last year went 7-10. According to Fox Sports Bet, their over/under win totals at 10.5. Nathaniel Hackett is a first-time head coach. A lot of first-time head coaches throughout the NFL. They added some guy named Russell Wilson, quarterback from Seattle. I think people around this area have heard of him, I think. They also get Randy Gregory, the defensive end from the Cowboys, DJ Jones, defensive tackle from the 49ers, and their big, quote-unquote, big draft pick was all the way in the second round, Nick Bonito, linebacker out of Oklahoma. They do lose Noah Fant and Shelby Harris, both to Seattle through that trade. They also lost that quarterback that nobody cares, some Drew Lock dude. Didn't even add him on here. I added Teddy Bridgewater. I think he was the better quarterback. He goes to Miami. Again, not much of a loss with Russell Wilson. But my first question to you is Judge Brown's help. So no, the danger has been averted for headphone users. But have the additions been better than the departures for Denver?
I think they have to be, as much as getting Russell in there, getting a decent quarterback in there. I think Noah Fant, there was a lot of pressure on him to produce in Denver, so it would be interesting to see how he does when he is playing with Seattle. But Randy Gregory is a one of those fixtures defensively on the defensive end. Yeah, he got outshone down in the Dallas area, but I think that's going to be a big thing for this team, is to have Gregory defensively for them. For me, I think the biggest question mark has to be thrown into the running backs. Yes, you have Javonte Williams, you have Melvin Gordon. Those two, Max Borghi, but I don't think Max will make, if he makes anything, he'll be fourth string to get his feet wet. But it's going to be interesting to see how well the running back core holds this team up.
Do you think Russell Wilson has upgraded or downgraded at the wide receiver position from Seattle.
Well, you've
He
got
leaves Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf. He moves on to a team with Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton.
you know, you can talk to a lot of people. I myself, I think DK is a little bit more hype than, you know, yes, that dude is tall. He could run. I'm just impressed a little bit more with Sutton and what he can do. I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see how this team plays out. But I think for me, I think it's a wash.
I don't think it's a wash. I think he downgraded. And I'm a little worried for Russell Wilson. Obviously, I think the offensive line's better because Seattle's offensive line was horrible. So that's an improvement.
Yeah, that's a plus.
A terrible downgrade, but I think the wide receivers at Seattle were better. But now we're going to see just how good Russell Wilson is.
Mm-hmm. And what he's capable of doing. Yep. 100%. And that's the thing is you look even, you know, and you make a good point. Who do they have for a tight end now that Noah Fant's not there? I mean,
I'm not going to try to say that name.
Who do you throw to? So
I'm not going to try to say that name. You can look it up and try to say his name. It's not happening. Not happening on my part.
Can't be that hard.
You look it up while I do the Kansas City. All right, Kansas City Chiefs getting your 6-time defending AFC West, champions. They went 12-5 last year. Fox Sports Bet has their over/under win total at just 10.5. I think that's low.
I think it's low too.
Andy Reid with his 10th season with Kansas City. They added Ronald Jones from Tampa Bay, the running back. They added wide receivers Juju Smith-Schuster from the Steelers and Marquez Valdez-Scantling from the Packers. They also add Trent McDuffie, the first-round pick this year from Washington, a cornerback. They also get George Karlaftis, the defensive end from Purdue, and the speedy Sky Moore, a wide receiver from Western Michigan. They get him in the second round. They do lose Tyreek Hill. Of course, that was the big offseason trade. Should have went to the Jets, but of course, Hill said no. They lose Pringle. I don't think Chiefs fans are worried about that. They lose DeMarcus Robinson, who has some speed too. They lose Darrell Williams, a running back from the Cardinals. Honestly, I think they have made some moves that really make this team deeper at offense, which is scary.
Yeah, 100%. And where I was downgrading Denver in the running back, I think the Ronald Jones signing is even better for this ball club. Still, you know, we were up and down with CEH. I think CEH with Jones is going to be a great fit. Juju, you know, with all of his to get the chance to catch a pass from Patrick Mahomes, I think that receiving core has just gotten a heck of a lot better. Hardman proved himself during that year last year, especially the second half of the year. I think this is the team to beat again in the AFC.
And since Robert Taylor is not here to say this, he has messaged me this multiple times throughout the training camp. But he is very high on Isaiah Pacheco, the rookie running back from Rutgers. He's right now third on their depth chart behind CEH. And Ronald Jones, he believes he will have the starting running back role by halfway through the season. He gave me the exact week, but he expects that to be a big name. So keep an eye out on there. Robert Taylor has been 50-50 on some of these calls. He also thought CEH was going to be the next big thing. And that hasn't worked out at all. Las Vegas Raiders went 10-7 in last year. Fox Sports Bet has their over/under win total at just 8.5. Josh McDaniels is the first season head coach for them. Again, they added Devontae Adams from the Packers and DeMarcus Robinson from the Chiefs and Keelan Cole from the Jets, formerly of also the Jaguars. So a lot of wide receiver changes there. Chandler Jones, a linebacker, also comes to the Raiders. They lose Zay Jones and Brian Edwards. They go to Jaguars and Falcons respectively, and Ngakoue ends up going to Indianapolis. Obviously, we think the wide receiver changes have been an improvement for the Raiders, but Chandler Jones and Ngakoue, is that a positive move or negative move for the team?
I think it's a huge move. As you look at
positive or negative?
Well, you have Chandler Jones, you have Max Crosby. I think the big thing with Chandler making it there to Las Vegas was all because of Crosby. Crosby was excited to play with him. I'm excited to see what this defensive line can do and what they can how they can upset things. You look at the entire, they got Deshaun Bowser there too to be the guy behind Max Crosby. And that was close. As it's going to be a great chance to see what these two can do against the likes now of playing against Russell Wilson twice a year, against playing against Herbert, and what the defensive line can do. And that's where I'm going to be looking the start of this season is that defensive line of the Oakland Raiders.
Yeah, this team is probably, we did the South last week, and we'll do the East next week, and then the North will finish things out. But out of the teams we've talked about so far, this is the hardest team for me to try to predict.
Hands down.
Because I'm with you. I think saying the Raiders are going to win the AFC West, I can't see it. But I don't know if they're going to finish last either. But they could go out and win this division, and they could finish last. This whole division is difficult for me to try to predict. I mean, you can go cookie cutter and just say Chiefs again, because they've done it 6 straight years, and it's not like they got worse. I mean, yes, a lot of people think losing Tyreek Hill will make them worse. I don't think so. They just added more depth, and it's not like they've gotten slower. They've gotten a lot of speed there. Last team to talk about, though, the Los Angeles Chargers. Disappointing year last year, just 9-8. A lot of people thought they were going to take that next step last year. They did not. Fox Sports has their over-under win total at 10.5. Brandon Staley there, who was making all sorts of risky play calls last year, cost their team a couple wins. We'll see if he has calmed down this year. Big additions for them, of course, Khalil Mack coming from the Bears. They get Gerald Everett from the Seahawks, the tight end. J.C. Jackson was the cornerback I wanted the Jets to get. He ends up in Los Angeles. He was from the Patriots. And they get Zion Johnson, the guard, in their first-round draft pick from Boston College. They lose Jared Cook, Justin Jackson, A lot of pieces I don't think were that big of pieces for LA. I think they have improved in the offseason, and I think they're the biggest threat right now to Kansas City.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm going to look at the defensive side of the ball again. Having Khalil Mack there, that might take some pressure off some of the corners to play a little bit looser, having Samuel play off a little bit. Joey Bosa might take a little bit of pressure off of the double teams against him. I think the defense has increased a little bit, and J.C. Jackson, you said it 100%. He is going to be one of those guys that came from the Patriots. I'm excited to see, and he was my one to watch as we talked a few weeks ago. I think he's one of them that we have to watch, and it's, for me, the defensive side of the ball for the Chargers.
All right, those are your quick team previews. Give me your big question for this division.
And you said it a minute ago, and you said the same thing. Can we see the Raiders do any to get farther? Can they take that next step? I want to know what the connection with the college teammates, having the college teammates back together, throwing the ball to each other again, Adams and Carr. Is it enough with Josh Jacobs and Renfro to get going again get the Raiders back in that plus side?
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. Again, they made the playoffs last year, so they don't have to do a big improvement to still be a pretty successful team. But we will see. We will see. My big question, I think this was a question I had after the big Russell Wilson trade, but we'll revisit it. It might have even been the same total. Well, we'll see. But over under 120 passing touchdowns by AFC West quarterbacks.
Wow. Hey, you look at who you've got. I mean, could it be easy? I mean, that means you're averaging 30 touchdowns a guy. I think it's more than capable. 18 games. Give me the over on it. I mean, you got Wilson, you've got Patrick Mahomes, Derek Carr now with Adams there. I think that opens up a lot of things. Yeah, give me the over.
Yeah, I'm taking the over as well. All right, give me your standing predictions, sir. We don't need wins and losses, just Order of finish.
For me, I'm going to start at the bottom. I think it's going to be the Raiders down there in the cellar. I think Denver has made enough moves, to oversee them just a little bit. And so I've got the Raiders 4, Denver 3, and I got to keep them the same. I think it's going to be Kansas City 1 and the Chargers at number 2.
I literally just switched one of them as we were going through our questions. I'm going to have Denver as last. We will see with Russell Wilson. Obviously, we said for years that they were just a quarterback away. Well, now they have the quarterback, but can he give them that next really big step? Not 100% sure. I'm going to have the Raiders 3rd. Again, this whole division could be completely flip-flop, but I do think that they made some great improvements on offense. I think defensively they might take a step back, and it's not even really which team is taking the step back, is which team did not take enough steps forward in this division and how well they have been playing. So that's where I'm going to go with that one. And I'm just going to have fun with it. I don't fully believe it. I don't think this is the end of Kansas City. I think Kansas City is going to make the playoffs either way. But for fun, I'm going to have the Chargers winning the division over Kansas City. Though, honestly, I think those two teams are going to finish within a game of each other either way.
Yeah, I think you're 100%. We go back to the same thing we kind of talked about last year. It's kind of the idea of you've got in the AFC North, you've got Lamar against Joe Burrow. For me, it's Patrick against Justin Herbert. It's what's going to fire this division up. And you're 100% right. I think the toughest division to figure out is what happens in the bottom two with Denver and with the Raiders. Could they be just one step away?
Mm-hmm. All right, let's hit our local sports news. And we finally have stuff to talk about now that the summer's starting to wind down. Again, Idaho football practices started last week. Washington starts tomorrow. I just got off the phone with a couple of the coaches, so I'll be up checking out the Pullman practice tomorrow morning. And then Clarkson was nice enough to practice at night, both trying to beat the heat. So I'll be able to check out both practices there.
They practice. Yeah, they practice until 9 p.m. tomorrow night. We got the email the other day. So they'll be out there trying to stay cool.
So I should have a first practice story on the Tribune on Friday or Thursday. Okay, I don't know my days. Should be out there on Thursday. I will also be heading out on Friday to check out the Clearwater Valley Jamboree. Some of the smaller schools in the area, Clearwater Valley, Timberline, Prairie, and Lapway, are going to have a controlled scrimmage. So I will check out that and have a kind of a story on each 4 of those teams as they get ready for their season. So everything's starting to ramp up, and you got to love it. We did have our first local high school sporting event yesterday. It was a Moscow Golf Invitational. Julia Broom of Lewiston shot 84 to be the medalist on the girls' side. She helped Lewiston finish second in that event. Coeur d'Alene won both sides, and they kind of dominated the boys' side. But Lewiston finishes 8 strokes behind Coeur d'Alene on the girls' side. Molly Sibley shoots 85, and Abigail Telez shoots an 88. All 3 of those girls could absolutely crush us in golf. Luke White on the boys' side from Coeur d'Alene shot a 73.
Luke who? Luke West?
Luke West. Did I say Luke White? Luke West. Sorry, Luke West.
I didn't know Luke could swing the golf club. We'll have to get him on the show and ask him.
It might. Luke West, she's a 73, which is insane to win on the boys' side. Again, Coeur d'Alene wins that one. For Lewiston, they finished 3rd. Carson King led the way, just 2 strokes back at 75. Dash Walker shoots an 86, as well as Tegan Newbo, the son of our good friend Brandon Newbo. He shoots an 86. Lewiston Golf will be back in action on Wednesday against Lake City, and then they will be hosting the best ball tournament at Lewiston Country Club on Monday. Also, Lewiston Soccer will get things going on Monday as Lewiston boys will host Lake City while the girls will travel to Lake City. So it's here.
Yep.
High school sports season is here. College is on the horizon. We'll talk about that shortly, but how excited are you for us to have a huge challenge trying to fit everything into 2 hours?
And it's going to be a challenge, especially with us balancing things. You writing for the paper, me coaching a little bit more. It's going to be interesting. But you said it. Everything is fired up. I got to watch a few minutes of the girls Bantams, Lady Bantams soccer practice. They were in action. They're practicing yesterday and today. So yeah, it's just exciting to finally have high school stuff going again. I am bummed. I sent you an email a few yesterday. I shared it with our buddy Jamin. We can't trust them anyway, but Max Prep has kind of been dropped by GSL. So it's going to be interesting how we're going to keep our stats. So,
Again, it would be fine if they had a site like Idaho Sports that at least kept standings and stuff. They weren't great with your stats, but there's a huge difference between baseball and football as far as stat keeping on Max Preps. Calling Lewiston High School baseball, all of those stats for every team they played were completely up to date on Max Preps. Football, absolutely not. Never, ever. So it'll be interesting and difficult, especially when some of these coaches are so hard to get a hold of. Working at the Tribune, usually your last resort is Max Preps. So not having that for you guys is going to suck. You are watching the R&R Sports Report right here on our Facebook and YouTube pages. We will be back in studio in a couple weeks. I still have not gotten an email from the people running the radio station for when we're having our first of the year meeting for the school year. Again, school year starts on Monday, but I've heard nothing over there about what the plans are for this year. So we're just kind of hanging out and waiting. But until then, you can watch us online only as we continue to try to grow this stuff. Again, it's going to be super busy. I tell Robert all the time, and we're too busy to make it work. But man, we need to do more than one show a week with everything that is going on. It's just not feasible. But God, it would be so much nicer. Let's get into LC volleyball as they get ready to start their season. The NAIA posted their preseason top 25. Again, I don't care about preseason polls, but it was pretty cool to see 3 of the Cascade Conference teams make the top 25. Corbin is 7th. Eastern Oregon is 12th. Oregon Tech is 19th. And Bushnell got 26th, basically, in votes. They got receiving votes, but they are the top team to not make the top 25. LC got no votes. And theirs is, they kind of, we'll talk about their season last year. It was a wild one for them. Eastern Oregon, Oregon Tech, and Corbin had all made pool play last year at the NAIA championships, and they're going to have very, very difficult teams. Cascade Conference is no joke when it comes to volleyball.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting to watch these girls come back. Have a couple of the girls that left and some really good recruitment in with Sean Pullman and what he's brought into the program so far. So excited to see where this ball club gets off their next week and how they start playing.
Yeah, and we'll hopefully have Sean Pullman on before the first home game is the plan. I'm trying to hold off on guests so we have back in person, but we'll get there. But he's going to have a different coaching staff starting this season.
Yeah, assistant coach Drew Choles leaves last week. We heard this after the show last week. She took a position. She'll be traveling up to Gonzaga and will be the assistant coach with the new head coach, Katie Wilson. Katie Wilson is a newer coach. She was hired in December of 21, and she comes from a short stint from Notre Dame. So good luck to the 2 new girls up there in Gonzaga with Drew and Katie Wilson. So excited to see what they bring to that program in a D1 level.
All right, before we get into this full LC preview real quick, let's get part 2 of Who Am I? So far, I know they did some track and field stuff, and now they play football.
Yeah, they were from...
Or they did play football.
Yep, so it came to the United States at the age of 21, played it at Azusa Pacific. Okay, so now your newer clues. I was drafted in the 2nd round in the NFL draft in the mid-1980s. In my 3rd season in the NFL, I had my best season. I made the first team All-Pro. During that season, it was my first of 2 Pro Bowls. I played for just 1 team in my short 6-year career. I am in their Hall of Fame.
Give me a guy that played for 6 seasons. Get out of here.
But he made the Pro Bowl twice out of those 6
Don't
years.
watch the Pro Bowl. Everyone makes the Pro Bowl, sir. I probably have made the Pro Bowl once.
Let me add to that then. In that first, I'm giving you something that's not on my list. In his 3rd year, he was the leading rusher in the NFL. That's all I'm going to tell you now.
Okay. We'll see how it goes. All right, let's look at LCSC volleyball as they get ready to start their season on Thursday. Again, they went 17-14 last year, 11-11 in conference. Yeah, that season was nuts last year. My first year really covering volleyball and understanding the sport better. They go on a 5-game home winning streak. It looks like everything is going forward. Then they follow that right up with a 6-game losing streak, and everything looks like it's going downhill. They bounce right back, win 5 straight, all of them on the road. But then they do end the season losing their last 3, including their Cascade Conference first-round matchup against Oregon Tech. Again, Oregon Tech ended up into pool play. So it wasn't like they lost to a bad team. Again, they will start their action down in California. They will play William and Jessup on Thursday. LC won their last meeting back in 2019. On Friday, they'll play both Pacific Union and Simpson. Again, LC won the last meeting they won the last meeting against Simpson. It'll be the first time ever they'll be playing Pacific Union. And then on Saturday, they'll play Menlo and UC Merced. And the last time they played, both 2015 and 2016. So nobody that is playing right now, but LC was able to win those games. But a nice little California trip to start the season for the ladies. Down there, they went Indiana last year, and I think a small California trip.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very successful for the Warriors. We'll see how things go. Their first home game, and we'll keep just ramming this into your ears, will be Friday, September 9th. They'll be taking on number 12, Eastern Oregon. I'll have the call somewhere, whether it's on the radio or just the Warrior Web app. I'm locked in to do play-by-play for Alicia, and it's just whether radio comes along or not. You look at the team, very senior heavy this year, as they have 6 returning seniors: Cassidy Nelson, Jada Wims, and Kenzie Cloward. This is definitely their last season. Channa Hart, Carly Bernstein, and Kenzie Dean are all seniors, but according to Alicia, they still have their possible COVID year that they could use if they want to. And it just depends if they want that extra year of volleyball or not. We'll see how that goes. A couple of ladies from Lewiston still on the team: junior Ashley Bachman and sophomore Jenna Carpenter. Carpenter had some really good moments last season as a freshman. They did lose Jess Ruffing and Lexi Trowbridge and Tori Edwards. All 3 were seniors. And the one that was news to me as I was doing the research, Hannah Martinez has left the program. She was a great server for the team last year. So that's going to be a big loss for LC. They do bring in several new pieces, a couple freshmen. Esther, listen, they need to stop bringing in these people with really difficult names. All right. But Esther Keliponi from California, Juliana Fergash Aguilar from Arizona, a junior transfer Vanja Tomic from Eastern Wyoming, a sophomore transfer Madison Camuller, who was at NCAA Division II Fresno Pacific, and then possibly the biggest one. And I'm very excited to kind of see how this works as far as the teamwork comes together. But Lisi Lange, a senior transfer from New Mexico Highlands, has joined the team. She played with Kenzie Cloward back in high school, so that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's exciting to see these girls and what the team has made moves to get these girls in with recruitment. Sean Pullman traveling around, getting some of these great girls to come in. And that's the thing, is how many of these girls have played together in the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's going to boil down to what those seniors, those possible 6 seniors do. 3 guaranteed seniors, but, they were impressive, and watching this team gel last year towards the end was quite exciting.
Yeah, for them to have such an up and down year last year and now have so much veteran leadership on that team, I think it'll be a very interesting season. It's a tough conference.
Mm-hmm.
So we will see how they're able to compete against some of the best, but I think they can be right up there with them. And we'll see how that goes. All right, sir. It's time for the sports-related draft.
Yeah, so this week kind of boiled down to something terrible I heard on TV, and then it made me reminisce of our 1990s, and that's kind of where we went with it. And for us, it is our best sports anchor, and we could do any sports anchor. And I gave Randy the example of Greg Gumbel, who did not make our list, but this week it is our best sports anchors. And sir, I made the draft, so you get the first pick.
Yeah, and there's a lot of sports anchors everywhere, but how can you not go to 90s ESPN, where I really think that's the best time ever for sports anchors. The art is definitely gone as ESPN has changed the way they do things. CBS Sports has some anchors, but it's kind of bland to me. They're very focused on the sports, but I just the sports broadcasting is not quite there for me. And you really don't have a lot of sports anchors elsewhere. You have like halftime people that will go over highlights, but just full on shows, you don't have that anymore. And you got to go to the legend with my first pick, Chris Berman. He started at ESPN back in 1979. I think he's retired 17 times, but ESPN just keeps bringing him back because you can't replace the man. Obviously, he's been a big part of Sunday Night Countdown, most notably known for NFL Primetime and all of the crazy catchphrases and sound effects and nicknames. Oh, I think I might be winning here, sir.
Yeah, it might be.
We'll get there. But just all of the crazy calls and the sound effects, and everyone tries to emulate him and his energy he brought. Also known for the U.S. Open. The Home Run Derby was very big in the 90s with him. Did some Stanley Cup finals. You got to go Chris Berman.
Yeah. Listening to him do his back call with Mark McGuire going over the Green Monster, it just crazy. And also see him still stay involved with the NFL Hall of Fame. I mean, for him to come out and announce the guys, I mean, that's totally cool. He is a legend. For me, in that same era, that a little bit earlier, Chris Berman started originally with SportsCenter 79 when they came out. That was about the same time he was on the field when Dwight Clark made the catch, and we talked about the catch here a few weeks ago. But for me, is one of those guys in the 90s, and he worked with a lot of different guys, and that is the late Stuart Scott. I mean, he brought a new fire to those guys. He had the hip hop flair. He had the exuberance that came out of him, what he did on the show. Again, working with Berman, he worked with some of the great names, Patrick and all of those, Bob Lee. He worked with every one of them. But he brought that hip hop vibe. He brought that pop culture that was starting to turn there in the 90s. He was one of the few African Americans that worked for the company that was not an athlete, which was cool. He brought in his own type into that. He started with Sports Night. Remember when Sports Night was on ESPN2? That was one of the original shows on ESPN2. He did NBA coverage. He dealt with Michael Jordan, NFL Primetime. He did Countdown. Like Berman, he did had some great catchphrases, and I wrote down 5 of them just thinking of. But I mean, his 2 big ones for me that stand out have to be Booyah, and it also has to be as cool as the other side of the pillow. And I say that because I think about that, because I'm one of those ones every night. I flip my pillow each night onto the other side, and it's just every time I do it, I lay down and it is cool, and I think Stuart Scott every time I flip it over. And it's weird that how sports can be brought into your daily lives, and you can remember a certain person, and he's one of them. And you might win this week with the other couple of guys added to it, but this guy, for me, I think about him every day and think about what is it. And we lost him way too early, lost him to cancer in 2015. If he doesn't pass away from cancer, I think he's still going strong, maybe for a different company, but I think he's still doing stuff.
Yeah, and just to be clear, all 6 of the people. I'm here quite late. You missed all of the AFC West talk, sir. You're going to have to watch the replay. Robert Taylor missed all the fun. That's just how it works.
He can vote on my behalf because I think Denny's going to vote for you tonight.
100%, because he talked about a great duo on SportsCenter, and my next pick is one of those two, in Dan Patrick, from ESPN 1989 to 2006. He's been doing the Dan Patrick Show basically ever since, though he kind of had a version of it on ESPN back when they were starting their ESPN radio stuff. It was part of Football Night in America on NBC. For me, I always loved him on Sports Jeopardy, but that's not really a sports anchor thing. Trevor Brooks from ESPN 8. Gotta love it. He also has his own school, the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting, as part of the whole Full Sail University deal. He's been on all sorts of the Adam Sandler stuff. But for me, as Denny had said, Patrick and Olbermann were a great duo on SportsCenter, or two of the best, possibly the best combination on SportsCenter, and the way they played off of each other. I do think Dan Patrick has had the best career since, so that's why I picked him here in the second round. But fantastic duo.
Yeah, and if you're going to say duos, you got to throw a name in there with Berman. You got to say Tom Jackson. There's been some great duos, and you said it 100%. I think Dan Patrick and Keith Olbermann before Olbermann left, easily a great duo. My second one, though, has to be another guy that kind of started things, and then he has kind of flown the coop, and that's Rich Eisen. Rich Eisen has started in 96. He had that short 7-year stint with the ESPN before he moved off and was part of the starting of the NFL Network, and where the NFL Network has gone, and with that group, he also did stuff with Home Run Derby. He was one of those guys that did NFL Game Day, now Thursday Night Football on NFL Network. He was also part of the big thing breaking the news about Mark McGwire and his retirement. So he was just one of those characters that still gets a lot of people going. And I think the biggest thing for me with him, he didn't have a ton of catchphrases, but for me, what he's done now in his effort to keep with NFL Network and what he does with it, the Rich Run thing. And he is one of my favorites to pull up his podcast and listen to his podcast.
His radio show is probably my favorite out there. I see him more as a radio personality than a sports broadcaster. Actually, I just think he has done a better job with that. And of course, he's a Jets fan, so I get to live through all the misery with him. So no, it's a great pick as well. My third round pick, and again, it was the duo. It's Keith Olbermann. I know a lot of people don't like him because you have to have a dry sense of humor to really get that guy. I have a very dry sense of humor. I absolutely loved Keith Olbermann. He was a lot of fun. Had 2 different sets with SportsCenter. He's a very boisterous and very talkative human being, and can rub people the wrong way, including his bosses. And you could go read or watch people talk about the stories of Patrick and Olbermann and upsetting the main people at ESPN multiple times. But Olbermann never cared. Also was part of Football Night in America. He is kind of more focused on the politics side of things, and you can take him or leave him there. He's very opinionated on that, and you have to give him respect for that, whether you agree with him or disagree with him. He will stand his ground for sure. But as far as SportsCenter went, he was just really, really fun to me. And again, with that dry sense of humor, talking over the sports, and him and Dan Patrick, they were the big show.
Yep. And they fed off of each other so well. And I think where we're at with SportsCenter now is because of those two guys. Is the bosses didn't like what they were doing, and the change was going way too fast for the big bosses. And I think that's why you see some of the people you do now.
Yeah. And I think they were opinionated and they hated it. Now you can have opinionated people, but they have to scream. They have to yell at each other to make it entertaining.
Exactly. Well, my last guy, again, from the 90s, and he has had his off and on time, and he's a guy out of the Seattle area, and that's Kenny Mayne. I mean, Kenny Mayne was one of those guys also you could throw into work with any of these guys, from Patrick to Berman to Stuart Scott. You never saw him with the same guy more than once. Bob Lee, Linda Cohn, you saw them. He did a lot. He started with ESPN in 94. And he finally hung him up in 2021. He said, I'm all done. But some of his funny skits and commercials from the Kenny Mayne's, the wilder worlds of sports, you see some of the things he did was just crazy. But he had some couple of big quotes and catchphrases. Yahtzee was probably his biggest one. And the other ones are, your puny ballparks are too small to contain my gargantuan blast. That was when that home run derby was going on, was Sosa and McGuire. Again, that time that you and I lived in the 90s, where it was all about the sport. So, Kenny Mayne. So there you have it. Our week in pictures there. We'll replay them up here. I'll put them up where y'all can see who we ended up taking. Randy, he does take the legend Chris Berman, Dan Patrick, and Keith Olbermann. I'm going to go with Stuart Scott, Dan Patrick, and Kenny Mayne. I think you could
take Rich Eisen, sir. You take Rich Eisen with your second pick, not Dan Patrick.
Yeah, I think they're all pretty well interchangeable because they all did work together. You did have the Big Show that was a little bit more frequent, but unbelievable group of guys there. Yeah, and I, Denny does say George Grande. He was a good one there too. And so let us know in the comments who won this week. But I think I'm gonna I think I'm gonna lean that way. So you get a win this week, probably your first win in a few weeks. So
it's a third straight.
Yeah, you don't get 3 straight.
That was third
we
straight.
We didn't have any votes last week.
Yes, we did. Go back and look at the comments. Denny Grubb voted. I didn't even make it up. Denny Grubb voted. All right, let's get on to some NFL news. Preseason was here.
Oh, well.
The first week happened.
Do you have your hanky sitting next to you where you can wipe your tears?
I hate preseason football. So lucky that Zach Wilson was okay. Enough. That's all I gotta say.
You don't want to talk about
if he wasn't out
Zach
for
Wilson?
the year. If he was out for the year, I don't know if I'd do the show anymore. My trip to Lambeau Field would have been canceled because there ain't no way I'm going to Lambeau Field to watch Joe Flacco quarterback my team.
You're gonna have to watch him go into Baltimore, though. There's a strong possibility
this is all a setup. Joe Flacco revenge game week 1. Or he's going to crush the Ravens. And then we'll bring back Zach Wilson. I hate preseason football. I absolutely hate it.
How many more times are we going to have to deal with the things happening in these games? When are we just going to say, okay, you're going to have 3 weeks of preseason practice, but you're not going to play anybody?
Never, because there's too much money in it. There's a big difference between these joint practices that people are doing and preseason games. You can sell tickets to these preseason games. Mm-hmm. It's the only difference. And I got asked from somebody, it was like, would you still be upset if the injury happened to Zach Wilson week 1? No. It happened in a game. Injuries happen. This was a fluke injury anyways. A lot of people, he should have slid. He should have done that. It would have just happened later. He's just trying to make a move. He was upset he threw the interception in the first drive and is trying to take that step forward. He's a competitor, so I'm not going to blame the young Zach Wilson for it.
No.
But things happen. Joe Flacco is going to leave with the victory on the bench. Flacco's not going to be the starting quarterback. I hate preseason. I hate the fact that I talked about this last week, that I was only worried about injuries. And I'm just minding my own business last week, watching the Yankees game, and Twitter blows up about Zach Wilson. Hate it. Let's move on. I don't care. New England Patriot placed Malcolm Butler on the IR. Don't care.
Lots of IRs this
Lots of
last
IR
couple.
stuff. A lot of injuries. No, you don't. Robert Taylor loves the preseason. He's a football
what?
junkie. He's a
For
football
what?
junkie.
I mean, I love football too. I love high school football. I love college football, but not the preseason.
Get rid of the
preseason. It's the same thing you bring up and you brought up earlier. I don't care about who the rankings are, who's where. I mean,
There's no
you haven't
new
played
schemes,
a game.
Robert. No. You get to see the new guys in the new schemes. Nobody does new schemes
It's
in the
vanilla.
preseason, except for Baltimore. Baltimore's the only stupid team that cares about the preseason, and they go out
21
there
in
and
the row.
try their best because they try to win every preseason game so they could set that stupid record last week.
21 in a row. We said it last year though.
Hate
Just saying.
it. Yeah, because your team cares apparently about the preseason. I don't. Let's do it. Who am I? Part 3. Let's move on, and we'll talk about the NFC West, and I can find a better mood.
All right, who am I? Part 3. This is where I think you get the answer, sir. And so let's roll back a little bit. Again, come for
Hey,
the
hold on. He's worried about the new wide receiver core. Patrick Mahomes played one drive. So yes, even the Chiefs are still waiting for week 1 to work it out. You're not going to work it all out with one drive. Kansas City doesn't care. They're just getting some reps out there. They throw Mahomes out there because guess what? These preseason fans that are going to spend all this money to watch the games are going to be all excited. Hey, we saw Mahomes for one drive. As a Jets fan, I should love preseason because they're usually decent in the preseason. I hate the preseason because all it is injuries. Anyways, who am I? Part 3.
All right, who am I? Part 3. We'll review just a second. Again, he came to the United States at age 21. He played college at Azusa Pacific as a track and field person, but then played for the NFL where he was drafted in the mid-'80s. He had 2 Pro Bowls. He played for just one team in 6 years. I had nearly 5,000 yards rushing and 40 touchdowns in my 6 years. My last carry in my professional career was an 8-yard touchdown. This is where you're going to get the answer. I am also known for my appearance in the 1991 video game Tecmo Super Bowl for being nearly impossible to tackle.
Oh, it's Bo Jackson.
That is incorrect, sir.
It's the only one that's anyone ever cared about on Tecmo.
My nickname is the Nigerian Nightmare. You said Mr. Jackson. It is not Mr. Jackson.
Well, you threw a curveball at me with whatever your stupid Tecmo Super Bowl is. He's the only one that anyone cared about from that game.
That was the weird thing, is seeing the question in there when I was reading about the video game. Is they said that he was one of the toughest ones to be tackled.
Who the hell was
in
that
game.
even? Who was that?
It was one of the guys that had given. There was a couple of guys that.
Who is the person you just showed on the screen?
Huh?
Who was that?
Christian Okoye, the Nigerian Nightmare. I did that. I did that for. Are you?
I don't even know who that is.
You don't know who Christian?
No.
Look at that. Denny got it.
Yeah, Denny messaged me earlier, and I wasn't gonna use his thing because I don't know who that name is.
Wow. Well,
and I lived on Tecmo Super Bowl. I could tackle Christian Okoye on that game. I had no problems with him. And Bo Jackson, on the other hand, that dude was a monster.
Wow, I figured Christian Okoye, you would know who it was.
Ken O'Brien to Altoon all day on Tecmo Super Bowl.
Altoon, I have not heard that name in years.
Altoon would break all the offensive records, and Dennis Byrd would break all the records defensively.
Listen, there was 3 other guys that I would have went with, and one of them would have been a WSU guy, Craig Elo. His birthday was this week. Magic
I met
Johnson.
him. I would have known him.
Magic.
One of your stats would have said I was jumped over by Michael Jordan.
Magic Jordan. Yeah, it would have been. Magic Johnson's birthday was this week, but the other one,
I know him.
The other one would have been another former Jet who played 11 seasons with the Jets, only team that he played on. He was one of the shortest players to ever play in the NFL.
Wayne Corbett.
Very good, sir. That's why I did not do it.
Come on. You give me some random ass running back from the Chiefs and you say he was great at Tecmo Super Bowl? I bet I go look on there. I could tackle him right now. Game. I got it right over here. I have the game. Come over. Let's play. And you have to run as him.
I will run as Christian Okoye, the Nigerian Nightmare.
It's really hot in this room and everyone's pissing me off. Should we talk about the NFC West?
Well, yeah, we might as well since Robert Taylor was late for the AFC West.
By the way, Robert Taylor, Chargers winning the AFC West by the same record as the Chiefs.
And Robert, I went with the Chiefs just barely ahead of the Chargers.
AFC West is so impossible. The only thing I will say is the Chiefs will finish in the top 2. That's the one team that I know. Like all the other teams, I could rank if they finished first, second, third, or fourth, it wouldn't surprise me. The Chiefs, if they finish outside the top 2, that would 100% shock me. I think the offense is going to be even better. But I can't just pick the Chiefs to win 7 straight. That's boring. All right, NFC West. They had 3 teams last year win at least 10 games. They're the only division that did that. They're also the only division that had 3 playoff teams. Mm-hmm. And actually, they're the only NFC team that had at least 2 teams win 10-plus games. Now, the NFC West was the best division of football last year.
They'll be lucky.
Agree or disagree?
They'll be lucky to have one team, just their one representative in the playoffs, I think, this year.
No, the NFC is so terrible. I agree with you. Most of these teams have fallen off compared to last year. But the entire NFC has fallen off. Because all the players went off to the AFC. All 4 teams last year had a positive point differential. I did not go back to see the last time that happened, but that was rare to me. The Rams and the 49ers met in the NFC Championship game. The Rams, of course, won that one 20-17. No team has repeated as the NFC West champion since the Rams did it back in 2017, 2018. All teams have won the division title since 2015, so we're not having any large droughts that could go away this year. And at least one wild card has come from this division in each of the last 4 seasons. So we will get into these teams. You already believe that streak's going to end this year.
Mm-hmm. And I think the Rams are going to be the back-to-back. It's going to be there. I think it's tough, and I know I'm going to catch a lot of flack for where these teams have gone and where they have not gone. I think is the biggest part is I don't think they've tried to really upgrade enough, and especially in Seattle. I think it's going to be ugly.
Oh boy. I'm waiting for a Seahawk fan to go, we're going to make the playoffs.
No.
I just want to go on another rant. Arizona Cardinals last year, 11-6. Fox Sports over-under has them at 9.5 wins this year. Cliff Kingsbury in his 4th season. They added Marquise Brown, old Hollywood, from the Ravens. Darrell Williams, the running back from the Chiefs, also went to Arizona, and their big draft signing was Trey McBride, a tight end, 2nd rounder from Colorado State. They lose Christian Kirk to the Jaguars, the wide receiver. Running back Chase Edmonds ends up with Miami. Jordan Hicks, the linebacker, goes to the Vikings. They also lose linebacker Chandler Jones to the Raiders. Step up, step down, even for Arizona this year.
I think it's probably, for me, I think it's a step down, losing Chandler Jones on the defensive side. Christian Kirk was okay, but nothing too out of it. DeAndre Hopkins is going to be the big question mark. How long, suspension-wise? Mm-hmm. How many losses does Arizona pick up before they get Hopkins back? I think is going to be the big question with that team. And who knows with Marquise? I love Marquise Brown, but he's already gotten himself in a little bit of trouble. So it's like, What do you?
Yeah,
What do
I'm
you got
not big on Marquise Brown. I think Christian Kirk's a better wide receiver than him. Brown can make the big plays, but I don't think you can really rely on him. Never been fully sold on Kyler Murray. Obviously, he gets the big contract. We will see what he does this season off of that. But I think it might be a bit of a struggle for Arizona. I'm with you. I think it's a downgrade from last year. Obviously, it's tough to repeat from their 11-6 year last year, especially because I do think this is a difficult division, at least the top 3 teams. So it's going to be tough. 9.5 is close. I would probably still take the under there, but I don't think they're going to completely implode. Your defending Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams went 12-5 last year. The over-under win total this year's 10.5. Sean McVay, who's gotten paid in the offseason, is here for his 6th season. They add Bobby Wagner from the Seahawks as he will replace Von Miller. They get Allen Robinson from the Bears. He replaces Robert Woods. And as of right now, Odell Beckham Jr. We'll see if he might just re-sign with the team when he's healthy. They also lose Andrew Whitworth, who retired after the Super Bowl, their longtime offensive tackle. And Darius Williams, their cornerback, went to the Jaguars. So I'm just going to ask you just straight up. Bobby Wagner, Von Miller, a positive or a negative change for the Rams?
I think it's a loss. I mean, Bobby is getting up there in age. Von Miller going to Buffalo.
Von Miller's kind of up there in age too.
Yeah, but he's still playing, I think, a little bit higher level. You know, Bobby has had a few injuries in the past, so I think that's going to hinder him a little bit. I'm more wondering what's going to happen with that offensive line. Whitworth not there. Cam Akers didn't play all that well, you know, and being hurt last year. That is my concern, is what the running backs can do this year behind some new offensive linemen. You've got Joe Noteboom, Edwards, Allen. It's going to be interesting. Some names you're not used to on that offensive line.
Yeah, I like the addition of Allen Robinson. I mean, obviously losing Robert Woods is not ideal, but I think Allen Robinson is better. He's kind of struggled there in Chicago with the 38 different quarterbacks he's had to deal with in his career. I think it's a big step, just like Matthew Stafford going to the Rams. I think this is going to be a resurgence for him. Obviously, him and Cooper Kupp are going to be a great one, too. And I think the Rams, spoilers, are going to win this division again. San Francisco 49ers went 10-7 last year. Their over-under win total, according to Fox Sports, is 9.5. Kyle Shanahan in his 6th season, they added Travarius Ward, the cornerback from the Chiefs, George Odom, safety from the Colts, and Drake Jackson in the draft from USC, linebacker. They lose Raheem Mostert to the Dolphins, DJ Jones, a defensive tackle, to the Broncos, and a couple safeties in Tart and Tomlinson. Tomlinson, the guard, to the Jets, safety Tart to the Eagles. I still am not sure how I feel about this team. Obviously, it looks like Trey Lance is the guy now. And they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think it's smart of them to hold on to him until one of these teams loses a quarterback. I think if the Zach Wilson injury was worse, the Jets would have definitely been on the phone. Obviously, with Saleh coming from San Francisco, that would have been a big thing too. But they can just sit him and wait for one of the an actual contender to possibly lose a quarterback and get a good haul, I think, for Jimmy G.
Yeah, 100% there. I think Jimmy G is going to move, but it's going to depend on an injury. For me, it's hard to think about this team because you look at, Kyle Shanahan's tired of talking about the Deebo Samuel thing and finally getting that signed. But who are you going to rely on handing the ball to all the time? Is Elijah Mitchell going to hold up as the running back there? You don't have any big names there.
They've never needed a big name.
But that's the thing with Trey
Lance. It's a different name every week.
But the thing is with Trey Lance, though, with him only being in his 2nd year, having a guy behind him protected, run the ball that's going to be consistent. I think that's where I'm at, is they've got to find a little bit of consistency. Is Mitchell that guy? I think we'll find out this year.
I think Mitchell will be that guy a couple weeks. Wilson will be that guy a couple weeks. They go hot hand as far as running backs go, and it's worked out for them so far. But it's all on is Trey Lance going to be really good or not this first year? I think they're going to take a downturn because of it and not be as consistent. But I do think there's still a lot of talent there in San Francisco, and they're a playoff contender. But I think their move has really helped the Rams kind of solidify the division. And then we get to the old Seattle Seahawks. 7-10 last year. Over under win total from Fox Sports 5.5. Pete Carroll's in his 13th season. They added Drew Lock and Noah Fant from Denver, and for the cost of Russell Wilson. Charles Cross was their first round pick from Mississippi State. Linebacker Boy Mafi from Minnesota also comes in. Ken Walker III could be a good running back for them from Michigan State. He was kind of that 1-2 pick as far as the running backs in the draft went. And Washington State offensive tackle Abraham Lucas went in the third round. He's done some things so far in training camp and preseason and all that goodness. They do lose Russell Wilson, Bobby Wagner, Chris Carson retired because he saw the writing on the wall, and health issues, of course, as well. Mm-hmm. And Gerald Everett ended up with the Chargers. I still hear Seahawks fans out there going, "Oh, we're going to be good." I think a 10-win season. You guys are nuts. Absolutely nuts. Period. End of story. You're more delusional than Jets fans going into week 1.
Period. Yeah, I did. Tell me, what you look at the schedule, anybody in your division, I see you get lucky one game out of your division and go 1-5. I give me the under all day long. If Fox is giving you 5.5 on the over/under win-loss, give me the under all day long. I just don't see that.
I'm going to say this. Seahawks fans have always said over the last decade or so that they are the best fan base, of the 12th man this and the 12th man that. And what a great fan base we are. This is where you prove yourselves. Because if the Seahawks stink like we think they're going to stink, are you the 12th man, or are only 12 men going to show up to watch these games?
Yeah, that's going to be the crazy part, because you and I have been to games where that place has gotten extremely loud, obnoxious, to the point of, oh my God, I almost got ran over by a car when we went. You remember that? I almost got ran over by a car.
He was just trying to get you with the puddle.
Yeah, I bet he was. But that's the thing. Is this fan base going to appreciate it? We've seen the 12th man. We know what it can do playing in that place because it's so deafening. With as bad as this team is looking to be, Geno Smith is not the answer. Drew Lock is not the answer. Nowhere close to these two. Rashad Penny, I hope so. You have no leader on the D. I don't think you have a leader on the defensive side anymore. Jordan Brooks, maybe, but who's going to step up for this team?
Can we just start calling their defense the Legion of Who?
I like that.
Thank you.
Maybe we should have did that on our notes, that we were going to talk about the Legion of Who, and we could have put that on.
It just popped into my head.
There you go. All right, sir. So the biggest question.
Is this it for Pete Carroll? Or is he going to try to go through a rebuild?
I don't see him. I think this is his last pack of bubble gum in Seattle.
Oh, man. I think it would make Haley really happy if he was gone.
Yeah. So for my question to you then, is it possible, and as bad as they are, does Seattle get one of the first 5 draft picks in upcoming draft?
Hey, they right now have their draft pick this year.
Well, as in the top 5.
Well, no, I'm just saying it's the first year that it won't go to the Jets for a while. Yeah, it's very possible. I mean, you look at the other teams that could be contenders for that top 5 pick. Obviously, the Jets are up there. Jaguars, possibly. Texans, of course.
Chicago,
Who else? Chicago. I mean, we'll see what happens with Chicago if they take a step forward. Detroit has usually been bad, but I think they made some steps forward. The New York Giants have been really bad. There's probably 6 or 7 teams that you could legit see have a top 3 pick. And then you're always going to have that one team or two that something happens and the team falls apart with injuries and such, where they thought they were going to possibly be a wild card team, and then things don't go their way and they end up with a bad selection. Seattle Seahawks last year. But yeah, I could definitely see the Seahawks with a top 5 pick. Maybe a top 1 pick.
I could see that being a coin flip between the Houston Texans and the Seattle Seahawks.
Oh, it'd be great. It'd be so great. All right. My standings predictions. Seahawks, of course, are 4th. I just don't see it with Arizona. So I will have them 3rd. It's really a tough battle between them and the Trey Lance-led San Francisco 49ers, but I'll have the 49ers 2nd, and the Rams are going to run away with it.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. Rams are going to run away with it. Me, I'm going to put Arizona just a little bit ahead of the San Francisco 49ers. The only reason is that we talked about is the running backs. I think James Conner, a little bit better fit there in Arizona. Mitchell, who knows? So they have 1, 2, 3. And then, sorry, Seattle fans, your team is probably number 4 and probably number 1 or 2 at the end of the year.
Could you imagine getting ready for the NFL draft and just talking about what Seattle's going to do with that top pick? Could you imagine if this happened last year when the Jets had their pick? How happy I would be.
So then that right away, if they tank the season to get the number 1 pick and go with a quarterback, which we think this season there's going to be some decent quarterbacks in this field.
There's supposed to be some really good ones out there. It's going to be interesting to see where the draft goes. I think there's going to be a lot of trades from teams that need quarterbacks and teams that don't. So it'll be really interesting. Let's move on to the sports that do not get enough airtime when we start with Aussie rules football, as we are coming up to the final regular season week. But first, we look back to last week, week 21, as Brisbane defeated St. Kilda 81-66. Western defeated GWS to keep their playoff hopes alive 62-57. Geelong has now locked up the top seed. Congratulations to the Cats. They crushed Gold Coast 119-59. Melbourne beat Carlton 79-74. Fremantle over West Coast 71-47. Hawthorn no-showed their game against Richmond. Eric Watkins was very mad at me throughout that entire game. He kept asking for Hawthorn to show up because Richmond is just ahead of Western for one of those playoff spots. Richmond destroyed Hawthorn 128-67. It was not that close. And Sydney defeated Collingwood 77-50. So it's a good battle for the top. So again, anybody that has not followed Aussie rules football, when you get to the playoffs, the top 4 play each other, and then the next 4 play each other. And those top 4, if you win, you move straight on to basically the semifinals. You lose, you're still in the playoffs, but you have to win an extra round. The bottom 4, you lose, you're out, and the winners will go on and face those losers from the top 4 teams. I love that playoff format. That's absolutely phenomenal. It gives you something to play for. And there's a lot to play for this last week. So Geelong's your 1 seed, but Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Collingwood, 2 through 5, all have 60 points. And it all comes down to point differential and point percentages is how they do it in Aussie rules for the ties. But any of those 4 teams could make it, as could Fremantle, who's only 2 points behind because they had a tie this year. Again, 4 points for a win, 2 points for a tie, and you get nothing for a loss.
Well, even Collingwood, with the picking up the loss, drops 3 spots in the ladder. So, I mean, that's a huge change. And like you said, you get to the 7, 8, 9, 10, any movement, they were some of those movements, 1 win, 1 loss, they'll jump right back up in there.
Yeah, so
it's last week.
What I love about this is usually in like American sports, those 5 teams would just be chilling. Just waiting for the playoffs because they're not playing for anything because there wouldn't have been a bye because there's 8 teams in. But no, they got something to play for to try to get that extra chance, basically, if you're in the top 4. Your playoffs right now are down to Fremantle, who is the 7th seed, and Carlton's the 8th seed. Richmond and Carlton. Richmond's in, but they could drop to 8 if they lose and Carlton wins. Western needs to win and have Carlton lose. They're close enough percentage-wise where that's very plausible. and St. Kilda needs to win, has to have Western lose and Carleton lose, and they have to have a huge margin of victory. Right, their chances of making it are very slim, but it's basically down to Carleton and Western for that last playoff spot. So you got lots of fun on TV. Brisbane and Melbourne, number 3 and 4 seeds.
I think that's the best matchup.
Yeah, that'll be at 2:50 a.m. on Friday Pacific time on FS1. North Melbourne and Gold Coast, if you really want to watch garbage, on FS2 at 9:10 on Friday. On Saturday, you get Port Adelaide versus Adelaide, another kind of garbage game at 2:30 a.m. That's on FS2. And then Carleton, who's that 8th seed, against Collingwood, the 5th seed. That'll be Saturday at 10:20 p.m. on FS2. Other games of note, Hawthorn takes on Western on Saturday at 8:10 p.m. I guess we could talk about Geelong versus West Coast. Nobody cares. They've got it. Who was the wooden spoon, West Coast or North Melbourne?
I don't know. Right now, it's just percentage points away. You look at the matchups. Geelong takes on West Coast. North Melbourne is playing Gold Coast. Gold Coast is still in that 14, 15 area. So I'm thinking it's going to end up being, I'm going to say it, West Coast falls to 18. North Melbourne comes up and wins and moves up.
All right. The margin is too much for me. North Melbourne would have to win. So I'm going to have North Melbourne getting the wooden spoon. Again, if this is your first time hearing about Aussie rules, wooden spoon goes to the team that finishes dead last in the regular season. More sports should have goofy awards like that. So we will come back and preview the finals, which is their playoffs, next week, as they'll be down to 8 teams. Robert's team is in. Our buddy Eric's team might be in. And my team is not in. It's not happening.
You had a better year than last year. We'll leave it at that.
Well, we avoided the wooden spoon. NASCAR, Kevin Harvick took over 50 races to get a win. He's now won back-to-back as he wins at Richmond this weekend. Chris Buescher gave him a good run. Just was struggling through traffic, kind of wore down his tires. He finishes third. He needs to win to get in, so that was disappointing for him. Christopher Bell had a different pit strategy than Kevin Harvick and was just mowing him down. Like the time differential every lap was going off by about half a second every single lap. He got within a few car lengths, needed a couple more laps to get him, but Kevin Harvick with his second win is now fully locked in to the playoffs. As again, if we have a new winner in each of these last 2 races in the regular season, it'll be the first time ever a driver won a race and did not make their playoffs. You got Watkins Glen this week, Daytona next week. Daytona, a complete cluster, trying to figure that one out. I'm going to predict Martin Truex Jr. is going to get his first win at Watkins Glen this weekend.
He's a good road course guy. I think he could easily come away with that. So excited to see where that one is. This is when it gets interesting. It's all for the shootout time, so it's going to be exciting. Let's start attention to the FedEx Cup with the playoffs starting this last week, and in 55 starts, Will Zalatoris finally gets his first win. The 25-year-old picks up a win and wins 15 under in 3 playoff holes. I have to ask you, sir, did you watch any of the playoff holes? It was a crazy third hole.
I walked into David Diefenberg's house as Zalatoris was setting up for his shot in relief on the third playoff hole after he landed on the rocks.
Crazy shot. Go back and watch it if you want to watch the final playoff. Zalatoris hits his shot, bounces on the rock wall protecting the green and the pond, bounces, comes to rest. So all that Straka has to do is hit it into the middle of the green. What does he do? He puts it right into the water. So his third shot, he goes long. It's just Zalatoris shoots a bogey on this hole to end up winning his first tournament. So he moves and slingshots into first place in the FedEx points. Now we go to this next week where the top 70 will go to the BMW Championship happening in Delaware. Our buddy Joel Damon does not make the cut. He shoots +2 on Friday, and so his season is done on the PGA Tour. Is the rest of the weeks are just playoff contention things. How about Cameron Smith's start to the day? Did you see all of the?
Yeah, I think it's
stuff
total BS that you can get penalized the next day.
as
If the
ball-
officials don't see this stuff throughout the whole day, stop it.
Yeah, as his ball came laid to rest on an OB line, out of bounds line, and no official got called in, like you said, and so he thought it was good that any part of the ball was laying on the line. He thought it was over in the fair territory. He could play it, so they do fine and watch and review everything and call him into the office Sunday morning, and he gets two penalty stroke taken away from him. So
I look at it like Tiger Woods used to. It was like if he was just Joe Schmo, he would have not been penalized because the TVs wouldn't have been on him.
mm-hmm.
You would have never gotten an angle to see this. But because he's Cameron Smith and he's battling for it, he gets caught for over something kind of silly.
Yeah, and Denise and I went back and watched it as they were. That's all the Golf Network was looking at Sunday morning with everything. That was the entire start of the morning, was all about Cameron Smith. And you look, I could barely tell and make out the red line in the green grass. And yes, because I'm colorblind, I could not see it. And for me, it looked like his ball was sitting perfectly fine. And I'm kind of like you, if you turn and sign off on your card, that should mean your card and your round is dead. If that's or done, and if
well, at least that night, you should be able to find it that night.
Yeah. So, but to wait until the next day and tell you, sorry, sir, that you can't have that. But
I mean, and you have all these officials. These officials should be following around. And come on, let's go. All right, that's going to do it for this week's episode number 95 here at the R&R Sports Report. Again, if you're listening for the first time and you enjoyed this nonsense, definitely give us a follow and a like and all that stuff on Facebook and YouTube. Again, we'll be back in studio here in a couple weeks once they get that all figured out, and then we'll start bringing in on all the guests and setting things up. Again, Idaho football practices are a weekend. Washington practices start tomorrow. High school football is right around the corner. We got LCSC volleyball this week. Keep an eye on lcwarriors.com to see how those ladies did for their first few games of the season. We'll have all the recaps and stuff like that come next week. But you got anything going on other than school getting ready to start?
No, just got football and working on the playbook for the junior high level. And we've got an 8-week push. We have 6 games in 8 weeks. So looking forward to that. And I don't know about you, sir. We're just 3 weeks away, basically, of the start of our NFL season and NFL league. And so looking excited to get back into the lanes and get bowling again.
Quick last look at some of the major league scores that matter. Braves do beat the Mets again. They win that one 5-0. Orioles defeated the Blue Jays 4-2. Guardians fall to the Tigers 4-3. Red Sox held on to beat the Pirates 5-3. And the Cardinals come back and walk it off in the 9th inning. They beat the Rockies 5-4. And there's the O's again. Twins beat the Royals 9-0. They're in that playoff hunt as well. Some good games going on right now. So once you get done with us, go check that out. Astros and White Sox tied at 3, going to the bottom of the 8th. White Sox had scored 2 in the bottom of the 7th to tie that one up. Dodgers and Brewers are tied at 3. They go to the 9th inning. And the Angels are up on the Mariners 2-0. As Denny Grubb right now is an Angels fan.
It's still early. We got plenty of time. It's still very early.
Mariners still looking for their first hit, by the way, in that game. 4 no-hit innings, no hit watch, and all that jazz. We get all those no-hit watches so early now. Yeah, go check that out. But that's going to do it for us. We'll be back, episode 96. Again, some volleyball talk. We'll do the AFC and NFC East divisions next week. So you can hear me rant more about the Jets because everyone loves to just watch me cry live on these shows. We'll have another Who Am I? Maybe Robert will pick a person that I've ever heard of before.
You need to go. I want you to pull out that game, and you and Haley can play, and you can let her be the Kansas City Chiefs and a Christian Okoye.
I guarantee you I tackle him. Guarantee you. First try. He won't break a single tackle. But that's it. Maybe I'll have that report for you next week. But until then, that's Robert. I'm Randy. This is the R&R Sports Report. But we're out.